Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to whatever this series is called, talking with wedding professionals and hearing how they are managing things during this coronavirus situation we've been dealing with. So today we are talking with Chelsea from Fiore Fine Flowers, and I will kind of hand it over to her and let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her shop and what she does. So take it away, Chelsea.
Thanks, Adam. So we are a full-service floral and event design planning company in Wilmington, and we also have a brick and mortar shop on Wrightsville Avenue in kind of Midtown Wilmington. So we service our brides from all over the country, and then also have daily clients that are coming to us from all over the country, locally and abroad as well.
So yeah, the one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about is we know each other from weddings and doing events and things like that, but you also have this kind of more retail side of what you do with employees and like you said, a brick and mortar shop. So I wanted to just dive right into that, and if you can kind of tell me how that's worked, and we'll talk about events here in a few minutes, but just how has it been from the initial, I guess, stay-at-home orders? Like, how has that been running a store, or an actual retail location? How has it been working with your employees? And just kind of walk me through all that.
Sure. Yeah. So, when schools started closing, and then all of the events and kind of the numbers of gatherings started to dwindle, all of that just kind of halted as far as the events go. And then we kind of were stuck looking at the retail side and wondering what we should do. And then when the stay-at-home order was issued, we were, as florists, deemed non-essential. So I know that a lot of florists in the state of North Carolina and nationally appealed to their local or to their governments, state governments, and a lot of people were able to get like a pass. So as a company, it became very apparent. We were having daily meetings that I myself and my staff were pretty uncomfortable with staying open, and didn't feel that going through an appeals process was really the direction that we needed to go. We do have a pretty high volume daily shop, but our weddings and events, we could move a lot of that work remotely. So I had my full-time staff, which is 4 people, move computers and take everything home with them that they needed to. But really, we were able to do all of that from our homes. And then we closed the doors to the daily shop. It's hard to remember whenever the stay-at-home order was put in place, just because we felt it was too risky.
Yeah, well, I applaud you for being proactive and just kind of thinking about safety of your staff as well as customers, and kind of taking that step. So is that currently where you guys is that how you're still operating? And this is what, May 20th?
May 20th. Yeah, so we started kind of mid-April, and again, it's kind of hard to remember exactly the timeline, but we got to a point where we felt a little bit more comfortable just with a very skeleton crew going back into the shop, because we kind of just left everything. We had picked up an event, and we'd actually done like a curbside pickup with flowers that we had in the shop right when the daily shop closed, and had like a pay what you can, and donated money to Nourish and See with all the flowers just to clear out. So, but for the most part, we just kind of like dropped everything and left. So we started to get back in, get things cleaned up, and do a little training, and get things back as much as we could, with the goal of being open for Mother's Day week.
Okay, so that was kind of the driving force. I mean, obviously that's a huge holiday for for florists.
Yeah.
How did that go? What was the did you have a normal amount of orders, and just kind of take me through the Mother's Day week and then the day of?
So sure. So we were definitely down for Mother's Day, but we were a little bit more conservative in our buying. I didn't want to, again, have a bunch of products sitting around the shop that we weren't going to be able to use. So we actually did more than I thought, and was very, as we started going and started getting phone calls, and really we've been getting emails asking if we've been open this whole time. So it's been really, really amazing and humbling to see the support of the community, and trying to, send flowers and be with their loved ones when, or send something to their loved ones when they can't actually be with their loved ones. So we saw a lot bigger numbers than I thought we were going to, which was great. And it felt really good to be, or it's been really great to be back in the shop and have that little sense of normalcy.
Yeah, I bet. And we spoke for a few minutes the other day, and you kind of touched on, like, sending flowers is one thing you can do to be with, when you can't be with the people that you love, you can at least give them a sentiment that you're thinking about them. And I guess, notice that, people are really jumping onto that and sending flowers, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about events, because that's the world that I know, and I've got a few questions here. So I guess first of all, from our standpoint as a video team, we can kind of do one event a day, but that's not the case for you. How many events could you service, say weddings in a single weekend or a single Saturday? Well, let's start there, I guess.
Okay, so we have a fairly decent sized team. During the busy seasons, we have up to 12 members on the Fiore team, being designers, assistant designers, and planners. And so we're able to be given, and it has to be, the right situation. So, but given the location of the events or the scale of the events, we're able to be in multiple locations. So we try to do that all the time. And then when things like this happen, which this is unprecedented, but we kind of compared it at the beginning to, a hurricane and how we move people around. So just kind of opening up, the Thursdays, the Mondays, the Tuesdays, and we're, as best we can, without stretching ourselves too thin, trying to accommodate everybody that's already, we've been working with, and giving them the dates that work for them, their families, and other vendors and venues as well.
So I guess I was asking that, and I guess thinking about my follow-up question, which is postponements for 2021. Is that a little bit easier to deal with because of the fact, so say somebody, has a June wedding in 2020 and they want to move that to June of 2021, and they pick a Saturday, it doesn't eliminate your availability for other, clients on that same Saturday necessarily. So has that been easier when it comes to postponements for you guys to kind of think about? And, for us, it's like, well, if a client has booked us for a date in 2020 and then postpones, and now it's a date in 2021, it really affects our business, because we can't, that's been 2 years that we've held a date for someone. But is that a little easier to deal with a larger team, or am I thinking there?
Sorry. Yeah, I'd say it's easier in the sense that we do have some flexibility, but there's certainly events that, we would only be taking one on one Saturday, because it truly takes our entire team to do some of the big installations. So we've already run into that a little bit next May, where people are trying to reschedule, and we already have it booked. So we are flexible, but it's, it does come to a point where it's limited. And certainly when we have our planning brides And that again will take, that takes a lot of our team as well. So it just really has to be the right mix. Like if there's, 2 weddings downtown, that's easier than if we're going to Bald Head and trying to be at Wrightsville Beach. So it's all just kind of, got to flow like that for it all to work.
That makes sense. Yeah, I didn't necessarily consider. I guess in my mind, I was like, well, you could do this event here and this event, but if you're, if it's a major installation, it's going to take up more of your team members. That makes sense. So you are kind of, I guess it would not be the same necessarily as what we're doing, but, in some cases kind of similar that. So what do you do in that case if you're, someone postpones for a date that you're already taken up for and you can't take on anything else? How have you navigated those situations with your clients?
So we've been asking people to give us 3 dates, and some we've gone down to their 6th, 7th option, and just trying to get everybody the best that we can. And we've had a couple people that have canceled, but I think it's under 5, honestly. I think almost everybody is postponing and just trying to wait it out and see what happens. The people that have canceled are mostly our out-of-state brides, and they're, doing small ceremonies at home. For those people, we're working out different things like shipping flowers or, just trying to get creative, figure out what we can do for them.
Yeah, I guess that I hadn't considered that either. If someone is planning from out of state, I was just thinking my train of thought and what I've seen is that smaller weddings that were going to be a smaller event anyway, I feel like they have an easier decision to make maybe for canceling versus a 200 or 300 person wedding where it's okay, whenever we do, we're going to still do this. But that's a good point too, because a lot of our brides that come to Wilmington aren't from here. And if that's the case, then, logistically, it's just harder, I suppose, to keep it going.
Totally.
You've kind of given a few pointers about this anyway with choosing multiple dates and seeing if other vendors are available. Are there any other specific pieces of advice that you would give to couples that are, in that maybe planning their fall weddings and kind of considering do we hang on here? Do we postpone? And what's the best case scenario if someone is going to postpone? What could they do to ensure that their wedding still goes on without a hitch and they keep all their vendors and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's so hard. I think just in the last week or so, we've gotten people that have postponed to August, which at the beginning we were like, oh, well, you're totally out of the woods then, and it's just such an ever-changing situation that we've been trying to do, like I said, have people give different dates, and also we're still getting contacts for new clients, and it's kind of just the best advice is to be planning for multiple things to happen and to be creative with your decisions. And we actually had our first ceremony last Friday, which was May 15th, and it was just the bride and groom and their parents, and they have postponed to May 15th, 2021. So they're going to have their big celebration, hopefully with their friends and families then. So it's, just kind of getting creative and coming up with what, the best plan B, best plan C, D, E is. And then really trying to be flexible and happy with your decision. It's just the time it's out of everybody's control. So just, making it like a happy story, a happy memory, because, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah. And I think that people are starting to come around to that, but it's kind of weird, someone's planning their wedding. It's the one day where it's I'm not going to compromise on anything. And then it's hey, maybe be a little flexible and go to plan B, C, D, E here. I think that those conversations initially were really, really challenging. And as this has gone on, both sides of that conversation, the couples and the wedding vendors have kind of, everybody is in the same boat. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. And this level of uncertainty is, we haven't seen it before. So just trying to be flexible is the best case scenario, or the best way to look at it, I guess, but it's still hard to tell,
right.
It's their wedding.
Right. Absolutely. And I feel like, we're not hopefully at a point where people are going to have to make they're making huge, really hard decisions. And, hopefully we'll see this go away at some point. This idea of social distancing at a wedding is so kind of like an oxymoron. And just all of our clients so far have truly been just incredible. And I've been so amazed by the grace that everybody has shown. And they're embracing it as part of their story, and I think that's really the best that we can all do. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great sentiment, is this is going to be part of that story. I remember my brother got married like 25 years ago, and I was a kid at the wedding, and there was a hurricane, and their wedding was at the Blockade Runner at Wrightsville Beach, and they still did it, but it was like all the outdoor stuff had to be, just they kind of rolled with the punches. But now, like, whenever they talk about their wedding, it's like, remember that? And it was, it's kind of like almost fondly remembered because of it. I don't know that you can, that's a real positive spin on this, but yeah, I think if you can like embrace it and just like, this is what we did, this is how it changed. And that kind of leads me into another question, is how do you think events will change, both in the short term, doing what we have to do, maybe smaller things and people going through with the ceremony now and waiting to have a party until later. But how do you think things will continue to change going forward, into next year and beyond that, if any? What do you think?
Yeah. So, I think for the next little bit, we'll probably see just limited numbers. That seems to be kind of where we're going, and like a smaller guest list. I really thought the wedding that we did this past Friday was just so beautiful and sweet. So I hope that we can and they had a photographer, a videographer come. I don't know what their plan is, but I can see a lot of people doing videos during, the reception and sharing, photo albums and sharing those at their celebration with the rest of their friends and family. So I think that could be a really special trend, that, we have this group of brides that has just incredibly intimate ceremonies, and then, hopefully we get further down the road and we can have receptions. But I think things are, we're not going to have the food displays that we are used to. And we were talking about that at the shop yesterday, just how all of that is it's going to change forever. So I think, fortunately, we're, as a wedding industry, we're a group of very creative people and creative problem solvers. So, that's truly one of my favorite parts of my job. So, trying to stay positive and think of new ways to do things, gets me kind of excited about what we're going to do, how we're going to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that from several people that are like, it's I guess we all enjoy a challenge, but yeah, it's generally creative people that tend to make their way into the wedding industry. And this is just another one of those things that we have to figure out and still, keep people celebrating, and
right,
because it is worth celebrating. And for my little 2 cents on it, I like intimate weddings. The ones that we've done, and my wedding, my and my wife's wedding was, 25 people, and I really valued that, because I think the bigger the event gets, and obviously like we love doing big events and big parties, and that's a whole different thing. But I found that the smaller events sometimes they're more there's more sentimental moments. Maybe it seems like to cut through a lot of that stuff and get to the heart of things. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops and what people do, because I think there's a real benefit to that as well. What would be any piece of advice that you could give to other vendors, that maybe, we're all kind of in a similar situation with postponements and cancellations and trying to get through this right now. Is there anything that you found helpful or that you guys have done to keep showing up every day? And just like, sometimes I know I have like weird days where I'm just like unmotivated and trying to swim through this stuff. Is there anything that you found to be helpful to just keep going and keep seeing the bright side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just hanging in there and trying. The creative outlet for me has been what is really keeping me going. And we're working on website. We had planned, I think you and I had talked months ago about doing the importance of e-commerce. And so we've kind of been throwing ourselves into that. And our daily shop has been really fun, because we've redone the front of the shop. We're not letting people in yet, but we've redone the front of the shop, and we're still getting calls and talking to people that are sending flowers. So we're still kind of getting, that little sense of normalcy that's helping. But I guess as far as advice goes, I ask for help if you need it. There are a lot of people like us out there, and your business bankers, your landlords, if you have, if you rent a space, and just everybody's kind of in a similar situation. It's affecting everybody differently, but asking for help if you need it. And I feel really fortunate that I have such a wonderful staff that they are, they're always like, whatever's best for Fiore. And we've made a lot of tough decisions together, but I think we want to see this succeed for our clients and for ourselves, and everything that we've worked so hard for. So just kind of have to dig in and make it through.
Yeah, a couple things you said there. Number one, asking for help. I think there's facets to that, but there are there's programs that people haven't heard of them. With the payroll protection program, the PPP program, EIDL through the SBA, unemployment. But outside of that, just if you're having a bad day, I found that just calling people. I've been in touch with people that friends that I haven't talked to in a long time, or even my parents. Just having somebody to talk through, especially if I feel like I've been lucky to have my wife here, because otherwise, if it was just me, I think my mental health would be. That would be so hard. So I know some people are in that position where they've just been in their house for months by themselves. Like I can't imagine that. But also, we've talked about before, typically, once our season ends, December, January, February, when we're not as busy with weddings, I always try to set up times with other vendors and connect. And then we've always talked about like, this is a great time to work on your business. So to me, we've kind of been granted this extended, portion of that sort of time that we can work on our business. So I've found that, maybe we're not doing the things that we would normally be doing, which is like production and editing. But there's there's an endless list of things that I can work on inside the business. And I think, if you're like, what do I do? Maybe start thinking about some of that stuff and make improvements elsewhere.
Right. And having just like the time to have creative space, where you're not just so in the routine. I find it I've had a lot more moments where I'm like, oh, well, that would be really cool. When normally I'm just like in such a grind that I'm not even allowed that time to think. So I'm hoping, that some really, really exciting things are going to happen out of this.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what our industry looks like in a year, because I think there's going to be so many changes, and some of them are just going to be because of, people had some time and space to think and get creative and then come up with something completely game changing. I've been doing interviews with wedding vendors on Zoom. This is my creative project right now. Well, is there anything else you would add to this, or that we missed that you think is important to get out there? Any other messages or things that you think are relevant to this conversation?
That's a big question.
There doesn't have to be.
I mean, I think really what our focus has been on is just trying to do right by our clients and by the business, and really make decisions that we feel are safe and responsible, and just do the best we can to really make it through this tough time, and stay positive, because we've been through, I think, I bring up hurricanes again because that's not, it's not the same, but it's a similar. We had Florence not a couple years ago, and that kind of halted things for a while. Me personally, it halted things because our home was hit by a tree. But so we just need to dig in and make it through, and hopefully we're going to come out better on the other side.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's great advice. Like, maybe just look for things that have happened before that made you go through something that was challenging, and use that to know that there is, going to be light at the end of the tunnel eventually. And if you can just kind of dig into that mindset every day and every week, and we'll all get through it together. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It was really great to hear your insight on these things, and thanks for being a part of whatever I'm doing right now. Maybe I just want to talk to people. I don't know, but it's really great to hear from you and see you, and hopefully we can work together again real soon.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.